Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, September 22nd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game is in 2 days. The game against Michigan in 65 days. I'm joined by Tony Gerdeman here inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on what, Tony, I think the forecast says is supposed to be like the last miserably, oppressively hot and humid day of the year. Thursday is the start of fall. Thursday is also the day it's going to start feeling like fall.
Yeah.
The Wisconsin game is coming up on Saturday, which is Big Ten play, which makes it feel like fall. And it's supposed to be like in the high 60s on Saturday. It is about to feel really, we're like a quarter of the way through the football season, but it's about to like actually feel like football around Columbus.
Yeah, right now it is 87 degrees outside and about 94 degrees in here, but leaving the Wisconsin game, you're probably going to want a jacket.
Well, sweatshirt at least. Come on, it's not.
Hoodie.
It's not going to be freezing. Yeah, a hoodie wouldn't be bad.
I'm just talking about you and like Kevin. You might want to bundle up.
So we're not here just to talk about the weather. We're also here to talk about Ohio State football. We got to talk to a bunch of players during interviews tonight. There was some interesting stuff that came out. I think my favorite first question of the night was when Steele Chambers walked up, and someone asked him about what was it that made you decide you weren't going to be a running back, you're going to go be a linebacker anymore. He's like, oh boy, what a way to start. Well, I stunk, and I wasn't very good, and kind of a one cut back, wasn't very elusive. So that was the Steele Chambers scouting report on Steele Chambers, the running back. Steele Chambers, a linebacker, considerably better. He's having a pretty significant impact already on the defensive side of the ball. He said they know you know what you're going to get with Wisconsin. That was something we heard from a number of guys.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of you know what you're going to get from Wisconsin, which is true. But then Wisconsin keeps winning a bunch of football games, so that's a pretty good indication that Wisconsin's pretty good at what Wisconsin does. They're big, fast, physical, want to play smash mouth ball, but they've also evolved, and they're throwing the ball a little bit more now than they used to. Did you you heard, you talked to some other folks, what did they have to say about Wisconsin?
Yeah, I only talked to offensive players, not defensive players, so I can't help you with the Wisconsin offense. I've never seen it before. But
they run the ball.
No, I do wonder, and I will answer your question. When do you think Steele Chambers will be able to take part in one of these things without talking about running back linebacker thing?
It might be a while, because you do get, one of the other questions later was sort of what, as a running back, was he able to, from his experience as a running back, what was he able to apply in terms of being a linebacker? So, you do get kind of an interesting dynamic there. And, you talk to Cade Stover, and
well,
we'll get into Cade Stover a little bit. But, guys who change sides of the ball like that, you do get kind of a little bit of a different dynamic. It's like asking the defensive coaches about the offensive players during fall camp and vice versa, because you kind of get a little bit of an interesting dynamic. So I think the answer to that is maybe never, but he's still Steele's always a little, he reminds me a little bit of Jeff Hafley, where sometimes he just won't want to answer your question, and he'll just be like, yeah, I don't know, really want to, he basically came up and said, yeah, sorry, if some of the answers are kind of short tonight, I'm really tired. So it was just kind of like matter of fact, like, well, nothing we can do about this.
But he's also a guy like Jeff Hafley who will tell you something and be like, I don't know that I should have told you that.
Yes.
And will, overshare. So yeah, that's interesting. That gives you some an insight into how open he is when he tells you, like, I'm tired. You're not going to get the best of me tonight. I can't even fake it. Whereas, you talk to Tommy Eichenberg, and that dude could have slept for 12 straight hours or 2 straight hours, and it's going to be the same no matter what. And it's, but in terms of Wisconsin, talking to Paris Johnson, discussing the Wisconsin pass rush and the way they do things, and you just have to be ready, and it's physical up front. Luke Wypler talked about the physicality of it. So I think everybody is just kind of looking forward to, it's a challenge, it's a physical challenge, and this is a team that the Ohio State offensive line getting their lather up from the new kind of running game that they have. So this is the next test, and this is a team that wants to be tested, and they want to prove themselves, not to just each other, but to everybody else out there as well.
Well, if you're a team that has had their toughness questioned, as this team has, games like Notre Dame, games like this, games like Penn State and Michigan later in the year, this is when you're going to have the opportunity to sort of show that toughness. Steele Chambers, speaking of, maybe being a little too frank, he was asked about, is practice this year more physical than it was last year? And he kind of laughed, and he said, definitely put more emphasis on being physical. They're actually in pads 2 days a week, which he's not. Doesn't sound like he's a particularly big fan of being in pads 2 days a week, but he said they need to do it, and he said the pace of practice makes things easier. And that, I think that's probably something that you hear a lot from these guys where, the goal during the week is that you're getting tested so much in practice and going against such good players who are going so hard that by the time you get to the game, that's the easy part of the week. That's at least the goal.
Well, and Cam Brown talked about this a couple weeks ago, that the scout team just runs all beaters. Basically, like every play that is designed to beat the defense they're running, that's what they're facing. And so it makes them better because they have to deal with that sort of stuff. And talking with Mayan Williams about like oversharing or being politically correct, basically, I asked him do you like this new running style, the diversity? And he was like, well, I got to be careful how I answer this, and he's like, I like that we're able to be more physical. So it's the delivery of the answers from different guys. They try to couch it, they try to be politically correct, but you get a pretty good idea of how they feel about things just based on how they answer, even if it's not with their words, it's how they say them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is one of the advantages of talking to some of these guys 6, 8, 10 times during the course of the season. You can sort of figure out, like at this point, we can kind of read Ryan Day a little bit with, when he says something or doesn't say something, or the way he says something, sometimes is a little bit of an indication. Paris Johnson, someone we've talked to a good bit, he talked about how much he's improved in watching film, in the film room this year. And he said, he doesn't watch as much film as Luke Wypler because, it sounds like it's not physically possible for a human being to watch as much film as Luke Wypler. He said he goes back to, as far back as you can go. And someone was asking Wypler earlier about watching film for Wisconsin. He's like, well, their defensive coordinator's been there since 2017. So it's like, I think there's a real possibility he was watching, a bunch of JT Barrett film at some point this week. But Paris said he's trying to watch film with Luke and learn from Luke. He said they call him Coach Whip because yes, he is. He will watch as much film as a coach, I guess. And I mean that's something that we've talked about. You've told the story on the podcast a couple times about the day after the national championship game in 2020. Luke Wypler's in the building and sending Greg Stidwar a video of a workout. He's just someone who, he has the reputation of being a smart guy and, obviously a very good, talented physical football player. But, man, the work that he puts in is one of the big reasons why he is where he is.
Not only does he like to watch film, he makes his own films to send to other people to watch, which he did with Greg Stidwara. I'm also now wondering if he does the Uncle Rico thing where he watches his own films that he's making, where you just sitting back on the couch and just reliving, this is good on this blocking sled, on this one I really, just watching his own old home movies. But it's a very serious offensive line now, and they're having a very good time, and that makes all of the padded practices, all of the film work, you're seeing the results of all of this work, and it just encourages them to do it more. And that's not just Paris, that's not just Luke Wypler, that's all of them. That's Josh Fryer as the number 6 guy. Paris Johnson talking about the fun, the jealousy of watching Donovan Jackson do this last year, wear the number 41 and be that extra tight end, watching Josh Fryer this year. And I suggested, hey, you could just have Zen Michalski go to left tackle, and you can put that 41 jersey on, you can get out there. And somebody else mentioned, they could throw it to you. And he seems intrigued by that, but I don't know that the coaches are all that intrigued by it.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a fourth quarter thing. If they're up by a bunch at some point.
If you want to get that Lombardi Award or the Outland Trophy, you throw to that guy, right?
Heisman Trophy, maybe. Yeah, that's a real possibility. Paris Johnson talked about the fact that you're talking about all the work that these guys are putting in, and they're playing teams that are the last couple of weeks they've been playing teams that have not been on their level. And Wisconsin will be much more on their level, but then you've got some other games coming up later this year where they're going to be substantial favorites. And Paris Johnson talked about how important it is to not get fat and happy after winning. Like, oh, we scored 77 points. Look at us. And he said teams that sit back and get fat and happy generally get exposed that next week. So they're very focused on not doing that. He is. Let's see. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. Steel Chambers was asked about T.C. Caffey, who scored the touchdown towards the end of the game on a very impressive run. And someone asked him about, what is he like going up against him again as a scout team. He's like, oh, he's not on scout. He's with the ones. He's with the ones and twos. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Talking to Mayan Williams about him, he's like, yeah, he does that in practice. Like he's. It wasn't a surprise to see him do that, and yeah, that's good to see. A lot of good words coming out about TC Caffey, which they may end up needing him the way these guys leave the field with various dings, throughout the season.
Yeah, and Mayan Williams, he was asked, about getting to play in the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, and after presumably getting to watch, he grew up in Cincinnati, so getting to watch all these Ohio State-Wisconsin games, he's like, I didn't really watch Ohio State growing up, really just watched the NFL. But now he may not have seized all the moments to watch Ohio State back in the day. He is very much seizing the moment to be a part of the Ohio State program right now. He said he has had the message that his teammates got to practice and play every game like it's your last, because you just never know. Which is, that is a very big picture perspective to have, but that's probably not a bad message in terms of getting every squeeze as much as you can out of every rep you got.
Well, and not that it has to be the last of your career, but it could be the last of your season, and they can see Evan Pryor in that same running back room, and that hits home for them whenever he is around. Not that it's just a reminder that take this seriously and make the most of it, because your knee, your ankle, or whatever, it can go. And so yeah, they're running like they're very serious about what they're doing, and having a good time with the I formation, the single back, all of this different stuff that they're getting to do, and they're allowed to set the tone, and that makes them have even more fun.
You got a chance to talk to Cade Stover quite a bit. Well, when they do these interviews, there are 3 separate tables, and generally Kevin's at one table, and Tony's at one, and I'm at one. So we'll sometimes move around and get to hear a little bit from other people. I did not hear any of Cade Stover. So what did Cade Stover have to say tonight?
Well, he was asked a bunch of stuff, obviously, but asked if he was surprised that he's been getting the ball, and he said, not really. And he's like, well, that's a good question. Then he thought about it. He's like, no, I'm not surprised, because he has put in the work, and they're going to throw the ball around here, so like you're going to be a guy that is an option. So he's happy with that. Just he's like Steel Chambers, still getting questions about the move, and I think he gets this probably every time. When did you feel like you were truly a tight end? You're fully invested and fully immersed. And he mentioned after the Notre Dame game, just feeling physically beaten up and feeling good, like you feel after you play defense. So he got to experience that, and it's like, oh, okay, I could be sore after playing offense. Don't have to be some prima donna like the wide receivers. I can be sore and happy, and so he is. And talking about his thoughts on just how bad he was when he first started out. He's like, the exact quote was, he said, I sucked when I started, and then he paused and said, and I do mean sucked. Like when he first started playing the position, because he didn't know any of it. You're trying to repeat what other people are telling you and do what they're telling you, and there's so much going on, and it's so fast, and obviously it takes a long time, but clearly doing better. Talking about CJ Stroud, said he is the best football player with the ball in his hands that he's ever been around, and no matter where you go, where you are, he can get it to you. And then he mentioned that he's also played with Justin Fields, to give you an idea of the guys that he's seen at Ohio State, and I can't disagree with him.
Yeah, and the results from C.J. Stroud are certainly right up there with the Justin Fields results, if not ahead of them. And this is is this a better offense than the 2019 offense? It may kind of depend on where you're looking on the field. The running backs in 2019 might have, J.K. Dobbins might have been a little ahead, but the wide receivers this year might be a little better.
And C.J. or J.K. rushed for 2,000 yards that year by himself. Like, what does this running game look like this year? It's a different kind of running game. Obviously, you don't have Justin Fields as that threat, but they're finding other ways to make the running game work, and it's working so far. But this is the biggest test of the year so far with Wisconsin. Yeah, and the 2019 team beat Wisconsin twice. The 2022 team is trying to beat them at least for the first time on Saturday. What did they beat them? 38-7, I think, during the regular season. So if it's anything close to that, that would be probably a little bit of a surprise. But Ohio State is obviously putting in the work this week, so we'll see where that pays off on Saturday. Someone else will be putting in the work on Saturday is Tony, also me, also Kevin. We will have our full pre- and post-game coverage
before and after that Wisconsin game. Those primetime games are always should be a good atmosphere Saturday. Everyone's wearing black uniforms, black helmets. I know there is a mixed feeling out there on those, but it should be a memorable atmosphere. Let's say. I think the last time they wore all black was the Michigan State game in 2019, I believe, and they beat Michigan State pretty thoroughly. So we'll see if that can carry over again this weekend. But yeah, it should be quite a memorable evening in the Horseshoe. We will be there. We'll have our full pregame coverage at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and then after the game, our full wall-to-wall post-game coverage, including immediate instant reaction from Mark Givler and Justin Whitlatch. Then we'll have the streaming of all the post-game interviews with Ryan Day and C.J. Stroud and all the Buckeyes, and then a little more from Mark and Justin, and then Tony and I will be on for the Buckeye Weekly Instant Reaction post-game show. It is generally like 2.5 hours of live Ohio State game recap and coverage, and big win, little win, small loss, big loss. There is always something to talk about with this program. We've done post-game shows following all of those different combinations of things, and the audience sometimes is having more fun than others, depending on how that game has gone. But it is always a good time and always fun to have you guys included in that show. It is the most fun when you guys are all there. So make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and then also ring that bell. Make sure you get notified every time we go live, because as soon as that clock hits 0 after the game on Saturday, we will have that live post-game show going. And again, it should be a lot to talk about. So we hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.